Welcome back everybody to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the work Nixxes Software has done porting Marvel's Spider-Man to the PC, and see how it compares to the previous remaster of the game running on Sony's PlayStation 5. For this comparison, I'll be playing Spider-Man on the PlayStation 5 running in its Fidelity mode, which targets a 4K resolution at a locked 30 frames per second. Other options available include a 60 FPS performance mode that utilizes a dynamic resolution to maintain its higher frame rate, and a performance ray tracing mode that maxes out at around 1440p but retains some of the advanced ray tracing reflections seen in the Fidelity mode, all while maintaining a similarly high performance average. For players running on a compatible panel, Spider-Man on the PS5 also sports an even more aggressive 120Hz mode that, thanks to an even subdivision, bumps the maximum frame rate in Fidelity mode from 30 to 40 FPS, making for an even smoother experience. In the other corner, we have the newly released PC release of Spider-Man that, as expected, gives users a lot more flexibility. Players now have the option to select between any resolution that they want, adjust dynamic scaling, swap between 3 different upscaling options, and of course, tweak each individual graphics setting to balance performance and fidelity. For our purposes, I'll be playing Spider-Man on the PC at 4K, with the graphics settings cranked up as high as possible, and the DLSS option set to its quality preset to maintain optimal visuals and complementary performance. Though I'll also show what the game runs like with other upscaling modes, along with the options disabled entirely so that you get a more broad sense of what this game is capable of. Alright, so let's kick this comparison off by first taking a look at some of our character models, both in cutscenes and in-game, starting with Spider-Man himself. Now, unlike the comparison I conducted of the initial PS4 title and the remaster, the differences here are pretty negligible. I looked at every detail that I could think of, from the suit fibers to the various dirt smudges, rips, and tears, and no matter what, the quality between the two versions remains nearly identical. This same observation can be found with practically every other character as well, suggesting that this really is just a direct transfer of the already excellent remaster that we received on the PS5. However, I did run into a few oddities throughout my time with the PC version. For starters, some of the textures in certain cutscenes don't appear to be loading their highest quality versions fast enough, despite those same details appearing crystal clear on the PS5. Though considering other textures on character models still appear very high res, I'm just going to mark this down as an unintended bug rather than an actual visual downgrade between the two versions. Environments, on the other hand, are a completely different story. As I've mentioned many times before, the environments in the Spider-Man game are gorgeous. There's an insane level of depth and detail to this massive recreation of New York City, and to finally see that delivered on the PC where we can crank all those details out further makes it all the more exciting to explore again, especially when considering the draw distances have received a considerable bump over the PS5 version. High-res versions of building surfaces now appear from slightly further away, and pop-in isn't nearly as noticeable this time around. Aside from that though, these environments remain virtually identical. All the high-res textures are retained and the environments remain just as dense as before. Only all that great detail is now rendered at an unlocked frame rate, which really helps make the city feel more alive. Lighting is in somewhat of the same boat. All the big changes to lighting, both in-game and in the cinematics, remain the same for this latest release. This includes all the great volumetric lighting, the expanded specular effects, and the gorgeous implementation of ray-traced reflections in the game's many mirrored surfaces. However, these latter effects have been further expanded upon, with much greater detail visible in the reflections themselves, including more objects, higher res textures, and additional dynamic characters like NPCs, cars, and debris. When viewed at a glance, it looks incredibly impressive, and it doesn't seem to hurt the performance nearly as much as you'd expect. But that being said, I was disappointed to find that for whatever reason, the ray tracing in the PC version does feel slightly off when compared to the console version of the game. In this scene in particular, I regularly found reflections to feel out of sync with my camera movement, causing a slight stuttering effect. This stutter isn't visible at all in the PS5 version of the game, regardless of whether you play in the 30 FPS fidelity mode or the higher frame rate performance ray traced mode. So something definitely isn't right with the PC version of these effects. I even tried lowering the ray tracing option and tweaking the various upscaling methods to try and identify the culprit. But no matter what, these reflections always seem to be bugged and don't seem to behave properly. Thankfully, this problem only rears its ugly head with the indoor reflections, as the various outdoor scenes with windows don't seem to suffer as much from it. Though I do hope this issue is addressed in the near future, as it's a bit odd that the PlayStation is providing better results in this area, even if the reflections themselves are technically superior on the PC. Shadow resolution has also seen a bit of a boost with the PC release, further eliminating the dithering around character shadows, and similarly bumping out the shadow render distance to create a more consistent long-range reconstruction of a city block. Because the game's lighting remains static and is locked to various story events, shadowing is similarly locked into place, making them much less demanding of a visual feature. Though like the environment, lighting, and character models, the changes here are still fairly negligible overall. Then of course we have our effects. As expected, there's really not much more that can be seen here. The fire effects used so liberally at the start of the game appear virtually identical between the two versions, with perhaps a few more particle effects appearing on average. And sadly, the water effects that I brought up before that weirdly seem toned down from the original release of the game still appear the same in this version. But the higher resolution image helps to really bring out all these effects so much better than before, especially Spidey's various web attacks that now appear crystal clear and really pop on the screen. Which is why it's so incredibly strange that Nixxes didn't add an option to sharpen the game's UI prompts and HUD elements. I had to go through my settings a few times just to see if I had forgotten to flip a switch. But at the time of recording, there doesn't seem to be any way to get the text on the top corners to appear any cleaner. I don't even recall the PlayStation version suffering from this issue, so I really hope Nixxes can find a way to fix this as well. Other than that though, the PC port of Spider-Man is really exactly what I hoped for. This is the full experience from top to bottom, running as smoothly as realistically possible, all at a locked 4K resolution, and the option to really tweak the game however you like. There's tons of accessibility options for players that need or want them, along with returning options like being able to save into multiple save slots. Ultra widescreen modes are also supported right out of the box, and different controllers like the DualSense and the different Xbox controllers all work as expected. I even had a chance to try the game on the Steam Deck, as I was sick in bed earlier this week, and I was surprised to find it running at a nice even 30 FPS at the system's native 1280 by 800 resolution. Though it definitely burns through the battery pretty quickly, and will require some tweaking to make it practical for portable use. Finally, let's wrap up with a brief sound comparison. Just like before, the sound here hasn't actually changed all that much, but this does at least give me a chance to show you some uninterrupted gameplay footage of various scenes from both versions. Which version of the game do you think looks, plays, and sounds the best?
Looks like Yuri called in the cavalry.
We need more backup! 1032, Times Square, officers under fire!
Looks like Yuri called in the cavalry.
We need more backup! 1032, Times Square, officers under fire! You know you're in there! bitch.
Nap time.
Enough! There he is! Shoot him down on me. This is gonna hurt. Don't even think about doing that to me.
Watch your head! Keep him on the ground!
I'll teach you some respect.
That's a cheap trick!
You don't mess with the Kingpin and live.
Got it?
Kingpin.
Can't hit him in the air!
And live.
Take you alive or dead! This doesn't care!
Stand down!
And that wraps up this episode of Direct Comparison. Overall, Spider-Man on the PC is off to a great start. The game looks just as great as I remembered, but now runs significantly smoother than ever before, thanks to some great optimization work by Nixxes. And other options like DLSS only boost those average frame rates further. It's not perfect, of course, with a few annoying texture bugs here and there, the unusual lag with the ray trace reflections indoors, and a few rare crashes after cutscenes. But aside from these few missteps, Spider-Man on the PC looks and plays great, and is definitely worth checking out, especially for players who didn't get a chance to play the original PlayStation versions of the game before. But what do you guys think? Are you enjoying Spider-Man Remastered on the PC, or do you still prefer the way it looks and plays on the PlayStation instead? Let me know in the comments section. Also, be sure to stay tuned for my upcoming documentary on the Batman series of games. I've only just come back from vacation and recovering from being sick this past week, so I appreciate your patience while I try and get back on track with that project, though I hope the video itself will live up to those expectations. In the meantime, I have a few other videos planned, and you can expect some more regular videos from me as we move into the fall season, so be sure to like and subscribe for more content coming soon.